Good afternoon. Back on April the 6th of this year, members of the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office, while assisting Director Aaron Balsomo, seated to my far right, of the Wicomico County Humane Society, responded to 5084 Cooper Road here in Wicomico County to assist them in checking on the welfare of several dogs at the location. While at that location, we observed there to be hundreds of dogs on this property. There were 166 dogs in the house alone. Most of them were crated in child's playpens. They were crated in plastic tubs. They were crated in anything they could possibly fit these puppies in. It was a very, very disturbing scene. There was an inordinate amount of feces and urine in the residence. In many locations, you could not determine what type of flooring was in the home because of the urine and the feces that covered the entire residence. There were also 3 outbuildings in the residence. Inside these 3 outbuildings were hundreds of more dogs, for a total of 310 dogs were found at this one location at 5084 Cooper Road here in Wicomico County, Maryland. There were also the remains, the skeletal remains of many dogs located in these outbuildings, as well as many puppies who had actually gnawed their own limbs off of their bodies. There were many dogs found in very deplorable and egregious health conditions. It was at that time a full-blown criminal investigation was launched by members of the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office, assisted by our State's Attorney's Office, not only here in Wicomico County, but the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, who had an expert on board that dealt with these types of child abuse cases. Because of the overwhelming amount of interest that was taken in this case early on, which included members of our Wicomico County government, our county executive's office, we launched a huge, as you well know, fundraiser to assist in the treatment of these animals and our local Wicomico County Humane Society. To date, there have been approximately $110,000 in financial donations made to our local Humane Society, as well as tens of thousands of dollars in supplies, tractor trailer loads to assist in the treatment of these animals. We have now arrested and charged the 2 individuals that were found at that residence. The first one being Susan Marie Murphy. She is 67 years of age, and her husband, Robert Holliday Murphy, 60 years of age, both of Eden, Maryland. Each individual has been charged with 84 counts of animal cruelty, each count carrying approximately 90 days in jail, for a total of 20+ years for each individual. If convicted of all charges, they will be facing at least 20 years in prison. We have never in our lives as law enforcement officers seen such egregious treatment of pets. This was the worst of the worst for everybody involved. The deputies who were on the scene, Lieutenant Tim Robinson of the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office, quite frankly, who spearheaded the bulk of our investigation here at the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Robinson personally adopted one of the dogs that was found in this puppy mill. I will tell you, after talking with Director Balsoma, seated to my far right, almost every single dog has been adopted. Of the 300+ dogs that were seized, there have been homes found for all except the 27, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, that remain at the Humane Society in treatment and are currently being treated for their injuries.
That's correct, sir.
This was a case that honestly, quite frankly, shocked our conscience. We had never seen anything like it. To see these precious dogs at the Humane Society in the condition they were found, I've certainly never seen anything like it in my life, and I know that my county executive was equally shocked at the condition of these dogs, and we'll certainly entertain any questions that anybody might have in this room. Remember, this was a partnership of investigative work that took place not only by our Humane Society, led under the direction of Mr. Aaron Balsomo, but the Wicomico County State's Attorney's Office, the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, and the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. And we sought expertise from other authorities, including the Humane Society of the United States, on how to pursue with this particular case. I personally talked with members of the Humane Society 2 weeks ago out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, while out there at a conference, and they've been following this case very closely. This case is, as you well know, garnered a lot of national media attention, and it should. I think we all love our pets, and I certainly have dogs at my home, and I love my dogs, and I cannot imagine treating any animal like this, let alone 310 under 4 different roofs housed at 5084 Cooper Road here in my county. Gladly entertain any questions you might have.
Now, under the, I'm sorry, Emily Lampa with WMDT, when we're talking about these kinds of charges, animal cruelty charges, a stipulation of probation can sometimes be that they would not have access to dogs, period, from this point forward, even animals. Is that something that will be also looked at aside from the jail?
Emily, it is something that certainly can be considered by a judge, but we have no state laws on the book whatsoever that prohibit someone being convicted of animal cruelty from possessing or nurturing animals. It is something I discussed last Thursday night with my state's attorney. It's something we've already discussed with our local delegation in Annapolis, and it's something we are certainly going to push for during this next legislative session, prohibiting anyone who's convicted of these heinous crimes. And I'm telling you, these are heinous crimes. Certainly heinous in my book. And we are certainly going to push for legislation that will prohibit anyone from ever possessing or caring for any animal if they're convicted of these crimes.
Can you speak at all to their prior history of arrests when it comes to animal cruelty?
In the interest of protecting the integrity of this current investigation, I do not want to do that. But we have uncovered information during our investigation that has led us to believe that they have conducted similar operations in the past.
Can you talk about whether Animal Control, the Humane Society, had visited the home previously to when you guys went and conducted your investigation and pulled these dogs out? We heard from neighbors that they had made complaints in the past.
Mr. Balsamo?
Could we slide those down if you don't mind, sir?
Absolutely.
There were complaints in the past. There were times that we had gone out there in the past. You know, I'm not going to speak to when exactly we went out there or anything like that. All I will say is when I started back in March, I was told about it. 3 weeks later, we went out there and we found the dogs in the state that they were in. And, you know, that's pretty much since then the investigation kicked off, and that's where we're at now.
Typically, what's the frequency of having to do kennel checks?
Depends on the situation. The varying complaints you can get. You know, we do checks on people almost daily. To find a kennel like that, though, is virtually unheard of in the condition it was in. There's a lot of people that breed in this county, and, you know, we've gotten a lot of complaints since then, and we're looking into everything that we have.
As the head of Animal Control and of the Humane Society, do you feel like things need to change in terms of the rules that are in place for enforcing kennels in the state of Maryland?
I feel that we really need to take a hard look at what we have on the books right now and see where we can make changes that are going to be effective. We can't just have changes on the books just to have changes. We need to have effective changes if we're going to look at doing anything legislatively.
What do you think needs to be changed?
I think we need to have stiffer penalties. Would, you know, really serve as a strong deterrent from this, and, you know, look at the wording that is in some of the animal codes to allow me and my officers to have a little bit more ability to enforce certain things that we might not necessarily be able to enforce right now.
Can you, or I know you talked to me, I know you mentioned deplorable. Can you describe walking into the house, what it looked like, what it smelled like?
You just straight smell of ammonia. My eyes burned. It was that bad. We had to go in and out of the house, taking shifts, taking breaks, because our eyes were burning so bad. We had difficulty breathing because of the amount of urine and feces in the house.
Mr. County Executive, did you want to say anything, sir?
Well, it's not a proud moment to be here for this occasion, other than the fact that we are lucky to have served with Sheriff Lewis, Tim, Aaron, to have someone so committed to the welfare of animals that they have been. They've taken the time to do this the right way. Every investigation needs time, and I know everybody was looking for answers earlier on, but assure you that it was done the correct way, done the proper way, and that's something we're very proud of. But Personally, I'm very proud of State's Attorney's Office, Sheriff Lewis' office, and the Humane Society for what they have done. They have taken the time to put the animals first, and that's what we need to do. And from my office, we will back whatever Aaron says we need to do and what we can do in this county to make things right, and hopefully run other checks that we don't see this again. This is not something that we're very proud of in Wicomico.
You know, as you well know, our goal in the first few hours of the investigation was to get these dogs out of there and get them the treatment they needed. But we were dealing with 310 dogs. And it was a monumental, quite frankly, Herculean task to do what we did. And we did it with the assistance of the Worcester County Humane Society and other members in the area, including Kent County, Delaware, who assisted us in finding housing and adoption for these dogs. Once we did that, our goal was to do a very comprehensive investigation and do a methodical investigation. Every single dog had a number assigned to it. Every single dog had a number assigned to it. You can imagine how much time went into that. Our state's attorney, Matt Mastrello, he took this case as if it was a triple homicide case that occurred here in Wicomico County. He took it personally. And his family took it personally. We all did, to see these dogs the way they were. And there were other members of this agency who adopted dogs, quite frankly. And keep in mind, these dogs were in the most deplorable conditions that one could ever imagine. And I'm proud to say that we're going to hold these two accountable.
Do you know how quickly they will be going to court?
Probably 8 to 12 weeks at the earliest.
At this point, have they been given the ability to postpone, or have they not had those appearances yet?
They are currently in the custody of the District Court Commissioner's Office in Corrections here in Wicomico County.
So 8 to 12 weeks with no official trial date of any sort? Just, you
No,
know,
ma'am.
any sort of
We do not. And because these are not felonies, they will not have a preliminary hearing within 30 days, which everyone gets anytime they're arrested on felony charges. I wish they were felonies, but they're not. They're misdemeanors. We have charged them with everything we can charge them with that we certainly think applies in this particular case. But they are all misdemeanor charges, each carrying a penalty of 90 days in jail. But I can tell you that we researched every law in the state and in the county to see what was applicable to this particular situation. And we have charged them with what we can charge them with. And we truly believe that they are responsible and solely responsible, these two individuals, for all these crimes that occurred.
Is there any reason to believe that they could be facing federal animal abuse charges?
Well, that's
During
certainly a
severity?
possibility. That's certainly a possibility.
In terms of, you know, the scope of something like this, is there any reason why you would think that there needs to be other kennels that need to be checked in this area? Did they have any association with other groups that would lend to the fact that you think there might be other kennels that need to be researched and investigated?
We found some connections, but I'm not going to go into that because we are still investigating other places that we are looking into, but we are taking a few of these very seriously that we're looking into.
Now, because kennels are having a puppy mill, there's no actual criminal charges you could pursue in terms of having a puppy mill per se. Do you feel like at this point it's hard to enforce this kind of behavior, this treatment of animals, because you can sell dogs in the state of Maryland, breed them for sale? It's only under the animal cruelty situation that these people are facing charges. Do you feel like at this point something needs to be approached in terms of kennel or puppy mill charges? I mean, that's something that across the country people are talking about at this point.
Yeah, and there's a big discussion all across the country about it, and you know, this has really brought the conversation of that to Wicomico County, and it's something I want to look into every possibility, what we can do to make this county better, you know, not just for the people, but for our animals as well.
In terms of the 27 that are still at Humane Society,
Yes.
what's their situation?
They're getting better. You know, it's varying injuries and illnesses that we have. We're working round the clock all the time to do our best to take care of them.
According to the charging documents, there were
Yes.
26 that were severely injured because of the conditions in those homes, home and the outbuildings. Does this involve those 26? Because one of them had to be euthanized. What are the other 2 dogs? Where did they come from?
We have one that's had some social issues, so to speak, so we've been doing a lot of socializing with him to get him more comfortable, and hopefully, we've reached out to a few rescues that are looking at taking him in.
And the other one?
Off the top of my head, I can't recall.
Okay, gotcha.
Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz Holland, Daily Times. Was this a puppy mill, or was this more of a hoarding situation, or both? Were they selling dogs?
It was a puppy mill, Liz.
They
No
were-
question about
They
it.
were breeding them.
Bona
to be
fide
sold.
puppy mill, yes ma'am. They were
Yes.
breeding them and selling them,
Okay. Why were
and
they?
advertising for sale.
Okay,
Yes ma'am.
just wanted to clear.
No question about it.
Walt Marcus and WRD. Is there any proposed legislation that you think the legislature or Wicomico County should take in regard to this to have better enforcement in the future? More laws that you could work with in the future?
Well, this having just been brought forth today with the charges and everything, we will work closely with Aaron's office as well as the state's attorney's office and the judge presiding over the case to find out what way we should go forward after this. We may just have an individual circumstance where someone just blew the law out, or we may need to make some changes, but that's something we won't know until we see the case come forward.
Is this the worst case of this type in Maryland, or have there been other cases statewide that you've been able to research?
It is the worst case, to my knowledge, that Maryland has ever seen. And working with the state's attorney's office in Baltimore City, he too believes it to be the worst case he's ever seen. And we actually brought him down here because of his level of expertise in prosecuting these types of cases. I will tell you, I have already talked with our local delegation in Annapolis, and they are very anxious to work with us to strengthen not only existing laws, but create new laws to protect not just dogs, but all animals. That includes our horses, because there's certainly cases of horse abuse that we know, we have documented here in Wicomico County alone. So we are going to be working not only to strengthen existing laws, but to create new legislation to protect all animals here, not only in Wicomico County, but in the state of Maryland. And yes, there is work to be done, and this will certainly spotlight what work needs to be done in the future for our legislators in Annapolis.
In the charging documents and in the arrest documents, it shows that the Murphys admitted to a lot of what was going on, from not realizing how bad it was in those outbuildings to also even admitting to the sales of these dogs. Would you say they are cooperative with the investigation?
They have been cooperative with the investigation, yes ma'am, they have been.
Did they, I know at this point they still have to go to court to admit guilt, but does it look like they will proceed and be cooperative, or do you think that they're going to get a lawyer and try to fight these charges?
Well, if they're wise, they will get an attorney, not necessarily to fight these charges, but to properly guide them through the judicial process. These are very serious charges. Anyone facing serious charges of this magnitude, they need to consult with an attorney prior to walking into that courtroom. Absolutely.
Do you have a message to anyone else out there who might be another suspect?
Yeah, my message is this: for anyone who believes that animals are being abused in any capacity in this county, I want them to contact the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. I want them to contact our Wicomico County Humane Society. My county executive and myself are very accessible via email, via cell phone, via telephone, our desk phones. But we have a new director here in Wicomico County who clearly has the experience to see this case through and to identify any future cases of animal abuse. And we're proud to work alongside of him for this purpose. And I can tell you, again, this has opened the eyes of everybody, not just law enforcement, not just our local government, but it's opened the eyes of our local delegation in Annapolis, our delegates, our senators who have been following this case very closely and share the same passion we share. I've worked next to my state's attorney, Matt Masrello, since his election 6 years ago, and this case consumed an inordinate amount of his time, but he did it with grace and the tenacity that a good prosecutor needs to do to see that this case was not only being handled properly, but he was also preparing for the prosecution of this case from the day we started investigating this case. He's been with us every step of the way.
Speaking of, he was recently appointed circuit court judge. Do you think that will push back the trial date or any kind of?
Not at all. He will obviously have to recuse himself from the case because he has intimate personal knowledge of the investigation, so he obviously couldn't hear this case.
Any idea who will be taking over the case in the state's attorney's office?
I do not. But I can assure you, I'm confident that it's in very competent hands for prosecutorial purposes.
How is the pooch that you adopted faring?
He's faring very well. He went from being as skittish and scared, shaking, to having one heck of a doggy personality. We named him Roger.
Roger. So, you were there
Yes,
the day all these dogs
Yes.
were taken from this property.
yes.
To welcome one of these dogs into your home, was that emotional for you?
Yes, it's just every time I see the dog, I just think about, what his life is now. Matter of fact, his favorite place to sleep is in a recliner in my living room. And just knowing what he's sleeping in now and how he sleeps to how he was living, and sleeping inside and being in the air conditioning and being on carpet and sitting back watching TV with me or my kids and my family's just really made him part of our family.
That's great.
You know, Emily, I can honestly attest. Show them, bring up a couple pictures on your cell phone of your dog.
Now you're going
Really?
to share
No,
on the
I want you
record.
guys to see this because we have seen this dog in its growth since Tim adopted it months ago. And we saw his frustration trying to potty train this dog
Oh,
to
his
where
pot-
it is today. To where it is today. These dogs lived every day in urine and feces. So to teach this dog how to potty train this dog and to teach this dog what Tim and his family have taught this dog, it's an awesome story. And Roger's a cute little dog, as you can see.
You don't mind texting me that?
Yes.
He'll text it to you.
You know, I may want to be adopted by him. We speak of a kind of like
Watch Star Wars.
We
So
can change the
fun,
channel
yeah,
after he's gone.
I've got tons of pictures. Half this phone is
I
pictures.
got to
of
be honest
Roger.
with my wife and I. My daughter went over to the Humane Society considering adopting a dog. They had all been adopted, except for those that Aaron had left behind, the 27. They'd already been adopted. And it was amazing how the community came together in this whole area and adopted every single one of those dogs, except for those we deliberately kept at Humane Society for purposes of getting them back on their feet again. And many of these dogs were blind. They were completely blind.
That's good.
Many were blind in one eye, and again, many had gnawed off their limbs. And it's something I didn't say earlier that I'll share with you now. Since we took these dogs, at least 6 of these dogs were already pregnant when we seized them and have delivered large, beautiful little puppies, So it's awesome.
But you're
Large
not
litters.
including any of those dogs in the
No, we are not. We are not including any of those dogs.